What's up, DC Nation? Welcome back to another video on DC Future States. And today we're covering Superman Worlds of War number 2. Now, the main story in this issue is written by Philip K. Johnson and drawn by Mikhail Janin. Now, to get you guys caught up to speed on this main story, Superman is gone. He is on War World in Mongols Coliseum fighting for his life. Meanwhile, a girl named Sadie walks through Smallville trying to prove to people that Superman is coming back. Sadie did not just look up to Superman, she also looked up to Clark Kent. So yeah guys, we're gonna cover like the finale, you could say, to this main story, but also the backup stories with Mr. Miracle, Shiloh Norman, and Midnighter, and also Black Racer. So yeah, if you guys are ready, let's dive into this issue. Sadie walks on her own through Smallville. A boy runs up to her asking what she meant when she said, "Clark Kent saved her." Sadie pulls out a newspaper and hands it to the boy. She tells him, "Clark Kent wrote something when I really need it. He helped me find purpose, pulled me off a literal edge. No disrespect to anyone back at the memorial, but if you want to understand who Superman is and why he's coming back, read that." The boy reads the paper. It says, "A man died this morning in Metropolis. He died with no home, no family, no job, and no possessions beyond the clothes he wore. Anyone who saw him in his final days would not see a man to be envied. But having had the privilege to know him, I maintain that his life was one anyone could be proud to have lived, and one I now feel compelled to share." In December 1942, a 22-year-old African-American piano player named Edgar Waters was walking to an audition. On the way, a headline caught his eye, and for 5 cents, he bought a newspaper for the first time. He read about a faraway land he knew almost nothing about, where a new world order had set out to enslave and exterminate its enemies. Waters, of course, knew the world was at war, but he had a foot deformity that exempted him from the draft. His entire life was music, and he thought about little else. But after reading about the atrocities committed overseas, something changed him. His foot became the first of many obstacles he would overcome to do what he then saw as his calling. In the coming months, a young man who was raised as an artist, who loved Count Basie, Art Tatum, and Duke Ellington, learned the ways of war. He traveled halfway across the world to save a race of people who did not know his name. He fought many battles, and in his own words, lost a bit of humanity each time. His greatest test came on the beaches of Normandy, where he was hideously wounded almost as soon as his boot struck sand. It was a wound that should have killed him. He spent the next 30 hours crawling from wounded to wounded, keeping his brothers in arms alive, while struggling to remain alive himself. Although his actions that day brought him pride, he was called to do other things in the war that haunted him the rest of his life. Killing soldiers, he said, was the terrible price we paid to save the lives of the innocents. After the war, Waters helped bring democracy and equality to Germany, even while serving as segregated army units. Upon returning to Metropolis, he and his fellow veterans became some of the earliest champions of civil rights. He was one of a dozen men who led the march on City Hall protests. There he suffered a fractured skull when they were viciously attacked by counter-protesters. But to the attackers' surprise, Waters fought back hard. Waters alone was arrested and imprisoned. That night he was beaten further by prisoners and then put in a hospital. After he was released, he got right back to fighting and never stopped. He lost a young son and his wife not long after. He founded a scholarship in his son's name and fundraised for it for the rest of his life. Years later, he organized anti-war protests and rallies. The people of the 12th Police Precinct in the Metropolis General Hospital emergency room came to know him by name. Because of the distinct limp he brought back from Normandy, the police came to know him as Crutch. The hospital knew him as Sarge. He ran for public office 3 times, twice for city council and once for mayor. He never won, but he became well known as one who would not let his voice go unheard. Never let any community in Metropolis be marginalized. Even in his final months, when he slept in alleys and homeless shelters, he wrote letters and made calls on borrowed phones to ensure the continuation of the scholarship that bore his son's name. Someone who saw Edgar Waters only as Lois might have thought him as a failure. A man who willingly faced death to save countless lives on a foreign shore. A fighter who fought for those who could not fight for him. A citizen who demanded his leaders give a voice to the voiceless. A father who risked bodily harm to ensure his son would be treated justly, and honored that son's memory by giving 54 young men and women a brighter future. A man whose resolve never faltered, even as he lost everything time and again through no faults of his own. A man whose sense of service to his fellow man was only strengthened with each loss. Edgar Waters was a man who taught us how life is to be lived, right up until the day he was taken from us. Remember him not just by his name, but by the life he lived, and by striving to live as he did, by protecting those in need, by demanding truth from leaders and justice from our courts, by leaving great works for those who follow us, by standing ever taller when we are knocked down, and we should stop fighting because the accolades never come, because our opponents or even our allies belittle us, or because the fight seems greater than what we have to give, then the accolades were never ours. And we must find it in ourselves to be brave, as selfless, as steadfast in our service to all of mankind. Now we shift to War World. Superman is fighting non-stop against huge monsters, but eventually Mongo goes in the fight and kills the alien slave that Superman was trying to protect. Superman failed to get the alien back to his home. Superman lays down, exhausted. Mongo walks up, taunting him. Mongo's mad that Superman did not bloody a single fighter. The sword Superman has is not worth nothing if not used. The monsters surround Superman. Superman responds, the fighters weren't the targets. Mongo gets angry. He picks up a sword and stabs Superman. In Smallville, Sadie and the old boy make it to the old Kent farm. There they find a spaceship that Superman landed in. Sadie begins to cry in joy. She looks up and sees a shooting star. Clark Kent, aka Superman, inspired hope in Sadie and the boy next to her. Switch back to War World again. Superman is in chains. Mongo taunts him. Superman has died hundreds of times. Mongo has resurrected him hundreds of times. Each time, Superman fails to save the slaves with him. Mongo tells Superman that eventually he'll forget everything on Earth. Then he'll become a soldier for War World. He'll leave War World and go to Earth. He will then destroy all those he once loved. His family, friends, and planets. Superman responds, I will not leave until I have broken every chain on War World. When every slave is free and every life you have taken is paid for, then I'll go home. Mongo walks away, frustrated. We fast forward later. Superman is in the Coliseum again with a sword and shield, with a slave by his side. Huge monsters in front of him and Mongo watching from behind. Superman fights on. The crowd cheers loudly. Heading into future states, Mr. Miracle. Shiloh Norman stares at an armada in space about to cause cosmic genocide. Shiloh reconnects the power to the spaceship behind him. He then flies back. He is then ambushed by War World warriors. Shiloh barely gets away, then shows up again, defeating the warriors in a clever way. They are released out into space. Shiloh then finds a room in the spaceship and tries to locate Earth. He tries sending a message, but it gets lost. Shiloh changes the course the message is sending and tries again. More warriors break into the space station room. Shiloh speeds off. The message makes it to Earth. The message is received. Jonathan Kent Superman got the message in the Fortress of Solitude. He does not know it's from Mr. Miracle though. He sends out Calyx drones to investigate. In the spaceship, Shiloh Norman passes by the guards and thinks about his current situation. He was teleported away from Earth because of a temporal causality loop. He isn't getting help anytime soon. It's going to take a miracle for Shiloh Norman to escape Warworld alive. Heading into Future State Midnighter Part 2, Midnighter points a gun at Apollo. He is curious who is hiding in his husband's skin. Midnighter shoots Apollo in the face. It is then revealed that it's not Apollo in front of Midnighter. It's Andre Trojan, founder and CEO of Trojan Solutions. Andre stands up still in Apollo's body. Midnighter keeps his aim. Andre explains that he is causing revolution. He is the transcendent man. Not a drip of humanity remains since Andre rose. He will continue to take over. Midnighter responds, Andre, so your plan is to kill your buddies and turn them into robots and kill anyone who disagrees? Andre Trojan then explains that he's trying to upgrade life in general. Andre pulls out neodymium, a substance stronger than kryptonite. He's going to use it to kill a god. That god being Superman. Midnighter responds, cool plan. It's not gonna happen though. My computer might be down, but I promise you, I've been killing people like you since you were sniffing test tubes at Star Labs. You're at my house now. Plus, I've got a friend who gave me directions. Say hello. On Midnighter's comms, a person says hello. Andre immediately goes from confident to a little worried. Now he says, where did you get that? Midnighter shoots, but Andre dodges. Andre punches Midnighter in the face, then holds him down by the neck. Midnighter gets up and pulls Andre's skin off from his jaw. Midnighter then bites at Andre's neck. The person on the comms tells Midnighter that the payload has to be delivered soon. Midnighter responds, we got time. Let's have a little fun. Midnighter punches Andre in the face. Andre taunts Midnighter about how Midnighter is fighting for Superman, the same man who would put Midnighter behind bars. Midnighter responds, we make it work. Andre kicks Midnighter away and goes to stomp on his body. Andre says, and here I was hoping you'd understand my vision. What a pity. You'll just have to experience extinction with the rest of the non-believers. Midnighter moves out of the way and pulls out another gun to shoot. He responds to Andre, I'm like a cockroach. I survive anything. Midnighter shoots Andre back in the head. Andre lays dead for a couple seconds, but then gets back up to fight more. He attacks Midnighter once again. Midnighter then hits a control and releases Nexus energy. This energy warps time around him. Andre's whole head is full robotic now because the skin that he once had on him has disintegrated. Now through this Nexus energy, time begins to warp. So Midnighter basically goes through puberty again. He starts as like a young child and then becomes a man again. Now Andre throws Midnighter back and forth and eventually holds him by the neck up. The person on Midnighter's comms tells him to stop messing around and deliver the payload. Andre hears the voice and wants to destroy the person on the other side of the comms. The Nexus energy gets stronger and Midnighter gets super old. Andre stands above, giving Midnighter one last chance to join him. Midnighter then activates a bomb in the Nexus energy. Andre tells Midnighter that he'll be back. Destroying his current body won't do anything. He'll just move into a new vessel. That's when Midnighter sits down waiting for a surprise. A version of him from the past that shows up next to him. The past version of Midnighter tells the old Midnighter to keep it together. He'll be back in his time stream soon. Andre Trojan then appears again and tries to kill Midnighter. Midnighter dodges Andre's punches and knocks him to the ground with a crowbar. The older Midnighter kicks Andre in the face, destroying the machine. Younger Midnighter hits the neck of the robot and lets older Midnighter finish the fights. Older Midnighter pulls off Andre's head and lifts it up smiling. The younger Midnighter says, sometimes I even surprise myself. Turns out that the person giving Midnighter directions in the comms was a past version of Midnighter all along. Now Andre Trojan's robot begins to self-destruct. Younger Midnighter gives older Midnighter the neodymium substance. It must not get in the wrong hands. Younger Midnighter throws older Midnighter into the Nexus energy, throwing him through time. Younger Midnighter runs as fast as he can so he won't get blown up by Andre Trojan's robots. Now Midnighter traces his steps back through the spaceship. He makes it past multiple robots and deadly forces. He jumps out of the spaceship into a portal. Midnighter makes it back on Warworld. Older Midnighter calls on the comms. He's mad at younger Midnighter for sending him back to Earth. Younger Midnighter tells him to figure out how to fix the chip in their head, then find a way out of the paradox they're in. Both of them are in a time loop. Younger Midnighter tells his older self, "Look, I gotta go. I'll call you later. Good luck." Back on Earth, the older Midnighter, now younger because he's in his own time period, disassembles Andre Trojan's robotic head. He's going to use the system in Andre's head to fix the chip in his own head. Midnighter says, "There's so much to be done, and time just gets away from us." And that's how he ends Future State's Midnighter. Heading into Future State's Black Racer, we see the Black Racer, Tonda, on the 4th ring on War World. She takes down a bunch of robotic guards. The leader of the ring gives Tonda a choice. Stand down and she might be given the privilege to fight at Mongol's Coliseum, or keep fighting back and die. Tonda stands tall. She now has full control and cannot be killed by the guard robot's blasters. She smiles. She fights back and takes out all the robotic guards easily. The leader watches and he's shocked. Tonda needs to get to Ring 3 next. She's getting closer to the surface of War World. Tonda grabs the leader of Ring 4 by the neck and says, "Which pipe leads to the top level?" The leader responds, None of them. The closest pipe is the pipe on level 3, the dining ring." Tonda flies and leaves the leader to be killed by the slaves he's held prisoner. The slaves then try to join Tonda. She tells them it's too dangerous. The slaves don't care. Fighting for freedom is always dangerous, and it's also worth it. Tonda was once a Black Racer, wanting revenge, but now she's leading a rebellion. Tonda crashes up to the surface of Ring 3 in a dining room. Rich aliens are shocked and mad that the Black Racer is intruding in their area. A bodyguard robot shows up and asks Tonda to leave. Tonda refuses, and their fight begins. Tonda is thrown into the control room on Ring 2. The bodyguard robot stands over Tonda, about to kill her. But then Tonda gets up and almost takes down the robot with multiple hits. The robot says, "You are unauthorized to be in Ring 2. Program annihilation. Authorized judgment. Death ray." But then Tonda cuts the robot off, saying, "No, you can call me Black Racer." The slaves stand below the Black Racer in awe as she controls her huge robots. The bodyguard robot has been destroyed. Tonda and her huge Black Racer machine flies up. She's going to get to the surface and stop the wrongs being committed on War World. And that's how we end Future State's Black Racer. So that was the full issue of Superman Worlds of War #2, and I'm first going to give my thoughts on the backup stories. The first backup about Shiloh Norman, Mr. Miracle, is fine. It's not great and the artwork is just subpar. I'm still excited for the Shiloh Norman Mr. Miracle series coming out in April, but this particular backup story didn't add excitement. It was just decent. Now the Midnighter backup story was a little better. The art was great and the crazy twists and turns made for a very enjoyable read. Am I excited for the Midnighter backup stories coming the main Action Comics title? Kinda, I guess, but the story here ends on an interesting note, but nothing really fantastic. Now the final backup story about the Black Racer was super weak. I don't care about Tonda's character at all. The action, the art in the story was decent, but that's about it. I don't know why DC decided to make a Black Racer backup story about a literal Black Racer. Like, that's very generic. This was DC's perfect chance to make an amazing backup story about the Black Racer from Apocalypse. But they failed hard. All us DC fans hearing about Black Racer backup story being in the Superman Worlds of War series thought about the Apocalypse Black Racer. And for me, I got super excited about that. I'm like, maybe we'll see some background about that character, or at least something very dark and interesting. No, instead, they had this literal Black Racer chick, Tonda, who's trying to free all these slaves and fight back against War World. And that could be an interesting story in its own right, but it's not what I came for. Now, enough about the backups. let's talk about the phenomenal Superman main story. First, Michael Jannon's artwork was awesome, as always. How he draws action sequences and emotional moments is incredible. Now, Philip Kennedy Johnson really wrote probably one of the best Superman stories I've read in a while. The article in Clark Kent's newspaper was written so well and inspired so much hope. Also, how Edgar Waters' story paralleled to Superman as he fought on Warworld was great. I also liked Sadie too. She became a really nice and emotional character by the end. Plus, the ending was very well done. For those wondering where the story ends though, well, it ends in Future State House of L #1, which I'm pretty sure is coming out either next week or the following week. But yeah, overall, this issue had a masterpiece of a main story and some decent backups. If you want a Superman story that really showcases his character well, then pick up this issue. I'm going to give this issue a rating of a 9 out of 10. I definitely recommend it, but you guys tell me your thoughts down below, and if you like the video, give a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my next DC Future States video. And yeah, thanks for watching, and peace out.